Hi everybody, I hope you are well. So today's video is, I always clap when I start something. I'll put my hands to the side. So today's video is going to be the questions that I had from the TikTok video that I recently did, which was all about better pooping and having more satisfying bowel movements. And I got quite a few questions through on there that just required a bit more of an in-depth answer. And as we probably know, TikTok is not always the place for things like that, because apparently the stats are that the average person has 0.1 second of attention and then just scrolls on by, and you also only get a certain amount of characters in the chat box. So I just thought much better to get all those questions together, sit in a more relaxed environment. I'm actually sat on the floor because I'm 38 weeks pregnant, so I'm kind of just sat where I can just have my legs sprawled out, and I've got some water with me, and I've actually just noticed, so I've got my cat is asleep in the Moses basket. Little Bella, I was like tidying around and I was like, what is that? I was like, oh, it's the cat. The fur baby is in there at the moment, but let's get stuck into it. So the questions that we had through are a real mixed bunch. So there are some that are a bit more intense or in depth, should I say. There are some that are maybe a little bit more lighthearted, and some that are people feeling like they're at their last tether. So I'm hoping that I can kind of maybe steer people in the right direction, give them a little bit of advice with that as well. So we've got our notepad, and we're going to start with the more kind of in-depth question, which was all about diverticular. So diverticular disease is actually one of the most common digestive diseases out there. So there's different types of gut problems. You have I call them more like the medical, so actually like the conditions and the diseases. So diverticular, you've got Crohn's, there is I can never pronounce it, colitis, that are an actual digestive disease. And then you also have your kind of other symptoms, which might just be that you are struggling with constipation, bloating, that sort of thing. And so diverticular disease is when you develop small pockets of or bulges in your large intestine, and they kind of develop within the lining of that intestine. It's not always all around everywhere, it could be on one part. And diverticulitis is when those bulges or pockets become inflamed and can cause you quite a lot of discomfort. And the difference between, so they're the same thing, diverticulitis and diverticular are the same thing, it's just depending on if they're inflamed or not inflamed. And when you, let's say, are not having a flare-up and you've got just diverticular, you may have no symptoms at all. Or you may have mild symptoms, so a bit of stomachache, a bit of bloating, but actually I'm not going to say bloating and stomachache is livable, but it's not as bad as a flare-up. So I have lots of people in the clinic who I speak to who got diagnosed with diverticular disease 10 years ago and have never since had a flare-up. And they're like, I got told I've got this, but I don't feel any symptoms, and they're not causing me any jip, if you know what I mean. You have other people, because everyone is so different, that will have regular flare-ups. And that means that these pockets and bulges within the lining have become inflamed, almost like pussy-like, and they can really cause you a lot of discomfort. So you've got severe bloating, blood potentially in your poop, really bad stomach pains, feeling sick is one of them. So actually, it's no joke really having diverticular, or when it goes into diverticulitis. But like I said, everyone is very different. Some people get diagnosed and never have a flare-up ever again. Some people, it's something that they really have to manage. Now, the ways that we can manage it, and please, again, everybody is different depending on the severity of their condition. But if you are not having a flare-up, if you are, you've been diagnosed with it, but you don't have a flare-up, really looking after the digestive system is key. So focusing on gut health as a whole. Now, with gut health, your kind of standard ones are looking at your, good bacteria, high fiber diet. Those two, if you aren't currently doing that a lot, you have to introduce that slowly, because good bacteria and fiber both work in your large intestines, especially fiber. You don't digest your fiber until it really reaches the large intestine. So if you're someone that's not having a great deal of fiber, and fiber is your fruits, veggies, seeds, nuts, beans, lentils, chickpeas, all those sort of fibrous foods, if you're not having a wide range of those at the moment, and you go 0 to hero, you're probably going to find that really uncomfortable. So really gradually increase. And the same with good bacteria. So really getting to the good bacteria is what we want to try and feed the gut microbiome. So through fermented foods, potentially a really high quality probiotic. Start slow, build that tolerance. So never go 0 to hero, because you won't like that. But if you're not having a flare up, getting your gut health really under control can really help. So trying to avoid stuff like high processed foods. So the ultra processed foods, your gut does not like them, especially if there's a condition going on. Stuff like lots of fizzy pop, we want to try and avoid as well. Staying really hydrated is key. It's the opposite advice, not on all of it, but if you are having a flare-up, and you will probably know your symptoms to what a flare-up is, we want low fibre, because like I said, fibre digests in the large intestines. We do not want to make your large intestines work any harder than it's already working when it's going through flare-up. So think white bread, there's literally 0 fibre in white bread. We want to keep that fibre low. No raw foods. Raw foods will really aggravate it. Really just calming. I would say stuff like broths, soups. So you're not overworking that digestive system. There's another really nice supplement actually, which is slippery elm. So slippery elm I normally advise for my clients who have got severe diarrhea and really inflamed, really heated heartburn. So slippery elm soothes the digestive tract. That might be something just to add in, even if you're not having a flare up. I always advise that you go for your powder form and you mix it in with water so it becomes kind of quite glutinous or glutinous, I don't know if that's the right word, a bit like a mossy type consistency, because that's what you want to coat and soothe that gut lining. If you do tablets, tablets when they've got powder inside them, what they call with little capsules, may do the same trick, but like the hard soluble tablets, they're going to do the same thing. So you might have to go through the slightly earthy taste of slippery elm to get there. But different, like I said, with diverticulitis, it will affect people differently. Mild diverticular and mild flare-ups can be cured or can be helped with antibiotics. If you do a round of antibiotics, please remember it does destroy lots of your gut microbiome. So after you've done your course, we really want to be focusing on rebuilding the gut microbiome through gut health, so good bacteria, high fiber, stress management, those things. Severe cases of diverticulitis, you can actually get that affected area removed, and that's something that you would then just need to be speaking to your GP about. And that's kind of it with it. It's something that you can manage to an extent. Stress is a huge one, so really focus on mindfulness. With any gut problem, stress is normally the trigger for them. So I always focus on mindfulness, slowing down, breathing, not always being on the go. But I hope that helps. of course, if you have any questions, pop them in this chat box here, chat box in the comments, and I can answer those. Like if you've got any sort of I can't say this word, certain questions. There we go, for you. So yeah, that was number one. So question number two was, well, the second one I put on the list, a bit more of an easier one, a bit more lighthearted. Well, not lighthearted, but someone asked, is shredded wheat okay? And there's no right or wrong answer to this. So shredded wheat, depending on what ones you get the ones with sugar on, obviously you want to avoid those. Shredded wheat has some form of fibre in it, but if you're using that as your only fibre source, then not necessarily is going to work to get those bowels moving. I normally recommend looking at, if you're having some sort of breakfast, is if you can handle oats, because not everyone can handle oats. Some people feel really sluggish on them. Oats is probably the best thing for you in the morning if you can handle it. If you can't, you might want to look at more stuff like eggs on sourdough, or making chia seed puddings are really great. Shredded wheat are going to be some processed in some form, because most cereal unfortunately is. So there's nothing majorly wrong with it, but it might not be necessarily the right thing to do if you're looking to get more fibre in to help with constipation. So I would recommend, if it's a breakfast thing, looking at some oats, chia seeds, some nice mixed fruit, adding some mixed seeds and nuts in, making a nice kind of bowl of kind of real goodness there. Again, if you have very low fibre in your diet now, and you start to introduce lots of fibre, please do it slowly. You have to build up tolerance to fibre, especially raw fibre. So, carrots, celery sticks, cucumber, all of those different things take a lot of effort to digest. And that's why lots of people who might start a diet and have a massive salad and thinking they're being really healthy and actually feeling awful with it, because it's too much raw fibre at once. So really please be mindful about how much fibre you're having at one go if you currently don't have the tolerance for it. For example, myself, I have had high fibre for a long time. My digestive tract can handle it. It couldn't back in the day, but I built that tolerance. I hope that helps. So the second question, I like this question because this is actually really, really valid one. Not valid, they're all valid, but as in important, that's the word I was looking for. Really important one. Pooping with piles. So hemorrhoids. So piles are so common, and it's something that we do not talk about enough. And I would say over 60% of my clients have piles, and they all come in really embarrassed about them. And I just say, normally, if you don't have them, then you're the minority? You don't, yeah, you know what I mean. But piles can be really, really painful. And again, similar to the diverticular, they can be dormant or they can be inflamed. So my advice is, if you are someone that suffers with piles, is we need to get you pooping better. So the tips that I've been doing on the TikTok channel around toilet training, around toilet positioning, how you should sit on the toilet, looking at your stress. So all of those things are going to help to get your bowels to move better. And the one top tip you must avoid is straining. If that poop isn't going to come out, don't worry. Get up, crack on with your day, and do the toilet training again the next day, or it might come out in the afternoon. I know it feels really uncomfortable being severely constipated, but if you are straining, you are going to make it worse. And actually, you are not going to get the long-term effects of curing constipation. So if you feel like you need to strain, just stop. And you can look at if it's really causing you jip, there's lots of poo that you just cannot get out, a home enema. It's not for everyone. It really isn't as scary as people think, but adding a little bit of water in just to get things moving. Sometimes you can literally feel, sounds really gross, where that poop is, because it's right there. You may want to, again, wash your hands, do a little bit of pushing. You might be able to just be able to get it round that bend slightly, but a home enema is great. You may want to look at some of the magnesium citrate, and doing that at night with lots of water. Not water at night, but make sure you're really hydrated. A good quantity of magnesium citrate at night can then get those bowels going. But top tip is avoid straining as much as you can, because that will make it worse. And focus on toilet training, 5 minutes every day at the same time, sat on the toilet without straining. If you poop, great. If you don't, move on. Toilet positioning, so get squatty potty, raise those knees higher than your pelvis. That is going to help to align your two sphincters properly, so things might be able to move out much better that way. Ab massage, really massage through the bowel. So it looks like I'm going left to right, but I'm actually going right to left. So I'll do it this way, right through until left. So you start on your right and you massage through to your left. That can really help. So yeah. No straining is the number one thing. So I had this next question, which is magnesium. Now, I spoke about magnesium quite a lot on a previous video, not the one with the Better Pooping series. And somebody asked a question around, I'm taking magnesium, it does help, but I get a sore belly. Which can be quite common, because if there is lots of poop in there and it's starting to move and you've got a sensitive digestive tract, it can feel quite uncomfortable. So what I would really advise is reduce your amount down. We only want to use magnesium to get the bowels going. We don't want to be relying on it long term at all. So I've had it before where someone has said that they feel a little bit sore or a bit sicky on magnesium, probably because things are moving. So reduce down and focus on the natural strategies that we've been talking about over on TikTok. So all of the stuff that I've just mentioned in the previous video. So toilet training, positioning, diverse range of fibre, hydration, and see if that can then start to get those bowels going. If you need to use magnesium now and again and you are getting that slightly sore belly, just please reduce it down and just see if you can get a bit of bowel movements without getting that. With magnesium, most people are deficient in it. Not everyone, but most. But I do always say to people is that even though it's just a supplement, but you may just want to ask especially if you've been suffering with constipation for a while, ask your local GP just to get your levels tested for magnesium to see where you are. Because it might be that actually your levels for magnesium are fine and you're putting more magnesium in and actually your system doesn't really like it. So let's look at another strategy to get those bowels moving. So maybe a fibre, like a prebiotic fibre supplement like helium husk, inulin, again, really low and slow with those two. But that's kind of where I always say to people is, especially if you're on any other form of medication, always speak to your GP if you're going to start something to help a condition. If you're starting like a vitamin C tablet or something like that, it might not be as much, but if you're going to use it to kind of get the bowels moving, just check in with the GP. I know they're hard to get hold of at the moment, but it's just good advice to make sure that you're covering all grounds. Same with pregnancy people. The same with pregnancy is that magnesium citrate is safe for pregnant people. I've been using it throughout my pregnancy for cramp and restless leg, but also to keep my bowels active. It's very common that your bowels do dry up during pregnancy. But I know my medical record. I know me. I've been chatting to my midwife about it. Always speak to your midwife before you start anything, because you may be on something that doesn't like magnesium and I don't know your medical record. So anything like that, just please speak to the midwives first. So that was the magnesium. We're going to talk a little bit about excess wind. So that was a question that came up on here. What can I do for excess wind? It is a slightly trickier one, but not a trickier one because, again, everyone is different. I have a lot of clients who don't break wind during the day, and then they go to bed and it is like, that's when it all happens. And the reason for that is because it's when they're relaxed. They're probably really holding everything in during the day, and then they relax, and then things start to kind of move through their system. But a couple of things with wind. So wind is normally produced if the body is in high inflammation or has to work harder. So if you're really suffering with excess wind, stuff like removing raw foods can really help. You may have a backup of poop inside you. So either looking at something to get things moving, so doing some magnesium at night, magnesium citrate at night, potentially a course of clonics that can really get just any excess stuff out, and then you make sure you focus on gut health after. So for me, clonic hydrotherapy has got to be done with an aftercare protocol. You need to look at your good bacteria. We don't want to just rely on just that clonic. It really is about trying to get, some stuff that comes out of some clients, it is unbelievable. And then they just start to rebuild their gut lining from there because they've got rid of some of this excess stuff. But yeah, raw food, clearing the backup. Is there a backup going on? Are you drinking lots of carbonated drinks? So fizzy drinks can really do it. Is there high stress? So high stress really can create inflammation in that gut. Also, another one is, are you eating very, very quickly? Which means that basically your food isn't being broken down where it should, because you're just sort of shoveling it in. Whole foods then get into the large intestines, which is creating gas, creating excess wind, and then obviously creating the wind for you. So that's something that I would recommend, is just looking at some of those habits. Are you eating stressfully? Are you eating quickly? 1 second. And seeing if that helps. Slippery elm can also quite help with just, again, soothing and calming that inflammation to remove your body creating this excess wind. One thing to be mindful of is that as things move through the system, so let's say you are, trying to think of the right word. So as air moves through your digestive tract, it actually expands. So for example, some people might come and have a treatment like a clonic, for example, and actually feel a bit more bloated after the treatment for the first day or so, because we've moved things around. As those air molecules move through, they expand. So just be mindful of that as well. But yeah, that's what I would start. Look at removing raw foods, nice and calming foods. Don't eat on the go. Look at your stress levels. Look at stuff like, are you eating loads of processed foods? Is that creating inflammation in the body? And then kind of almost eliminate it. So, write loads of different things down, eliminate it, and see kind of how you get on from there. So let's do, I'm going to leave, I've got three more questions. I'm going to leave one of them that I've combined all three questions into one for the end, but we're going to talk about lazy bowel. And the lady that asked this, I think actually it was for her daughter, if I remember correctly, and it's a thing. So what's really hard about the digestive tract is every single person is different. Some people and everyone thinks that to have a normal transit time, you should be going every single day. And actually, some people do just have a slower transit time, which means that they go every other day. But they go every other day and they feel absolutely fine. In between them not going, there's no bloating, there's no digestive issues, they're not in any sort of like abdominal pain, and they have a very good happy poo when they go to the toilet every other day. And that's fine. They have a slower transit. It's if you are having poos every other day or every second day, and you are you are experiencing digestive issues, or you are getting really bloated in between, you feel sick when you eat, there's loads of wind going on, you feel like you need to go but you can't go, then yes, there is a form of constipation going on. So it's really just trying to determine what is going on with that individual. A lazy bowel, again, we want to be looking at all of those tips and tricks I've been putting onto TikTok. So toilet training, I'm not going to go through them all again because we've had them on there. But that is where I would start if you feel like it's a more of a constipated bowel, and that's why it's lazy, and that's why she gets these massive poos maybe every other day. And they're not very comfortable, and you get the digestive issues in between. Let's start toilet training as much as we can. Look at hydration, look at her fibre, making sure that there is plenty of diverse fibre. So when I say fibre, please avoid your fibre gels. Don't just go for all brand, think colour, think diversity. That's really what we're looking for when it comes to feeding that gut microbiome the goodness that it needs. It wants a diverse range of fibre. So mixed seeds, veggies, fruits, legumes, all these sort of things. We need lots of hydration as well to make sure that we are pushing all of that fibre through that system. So yeah, that's what I would advise, is just find out exactly why it is lazy. So the next question, I can't really pronounce it. So a bit of a disclaimer, I am very, very dyslexic and find lots of things, even normal words, really hard to pronounce. But this is gastroparesis. So the question basically was, when I put on about toilet training on TikTok, because what if I have I'm going to call it delayed emptying. So basically what it is when it's the delayed emptying from your stomach into your small intestines, meaning that the food is staying in that stomach for longer. Now, this isn't an area that I have necessarily been trained in or cover, because I'm really more looking at small and large intestine. But people do come in with these real stomach problems. My main advice is always speak to your GP about these sort of things, because these are medical conditions. And toilet training, for example, like we were talking about on TikTok, is not necessarily going to help your condition, because it's a different part of the body. Couple of things though that can help is making sure that you're eating little and often rather than having big meals, because that can make you feel really uncomfortable. Potentially looking at more liquid-based diet. I'm not normally massively keen on just liquid-based diet, but looking at things just whilst you're suffering, more soups, those sort of things that can help. So you want to try and get your nutrients in, and if you're not getting, so basically nutrients need to get to the small intestines. That's where it starts to really break things down and send things off to where it goes. And if we're not getting it to the small intestines, then you are going to start to feel you're not going to get those nutrients from your food. So stuff like soups and stuff you can pack in with other nutrients. There are different medications that you can take, but again, this isn't my area. So I don't want to advise on stuff that I don't know that well. So I would always just recommend just go back to the GP, just be pushy, make sure that you're getting the advice and guidance from them that you need to help, because there is stuff that you can do out there that can definitely help for that condition. Final thing then that we're going to talk about is, and this is more, people weren't necessarily asking a question, but I was getting quite a lot of people saying that they have tried everything and they eat loads of fibre, they drink loads of water, they exercise, and they still are severely constipated, and the only thing that works, somebody said 7 laxatives, is the only thing that gets their bowels moving, and that is just not a nice place to be. We want your bowels moving, and try and get your bowels moving naturally. So what I would say to these type of questions or statements that I got is, we have to look at the bowel as a whole holistic approach, and remember that sometimes it's not what we're putting in that is going to get those bowels going. It's how we are up here. And I did one of my clips was stress in the gut, and it's so important that we remember that our heads ultimately control our bowels, and what we have to do is reconnect the brain-gut connection and allow those bowels to start to feel safe and feel like they are okay to empty. And if you are somebody who is high stress, high overthinker, worrier, anxious, really busy all the time, never slowing down, chances are you are constantly in your stress state, constantly producing cortisol and adrenaline, and you are not allowing those bowels to function how they should. And just throwing a load of fibre at it, exercising, drinking, probably really panicking about that because I'm doing all this stuff and I'm still not going, is just going to dry them up even more. Slow down is my biggest bit of advice. This was the reason why this is a bit close to my heart, actually, because this was me. I've always worked in a very frantic environment before. So I was either managing health clubs where you are working non-stop because the health clubs are always open, working, customer service, always with people, or it was in hotels, and hotels, again, as you can imagine, never sleep. And I was also just not very nice to myself. I was always arguing in my head. I was always mean to myself. I was always, I never stopped, never ever stopped. From the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed, because if I stopped, my brain started thinking, and I didn't really like what I was thinking, if that makes sense. Now I can reflect on that. Before I just did, that wasn't what I thought at all. I was like, I'm fine. This is exactly how I am. Lockdown happened, was forced to slow down. And all of a sudden I realised, hang on a minute, something isn't right in the head. I just don't give myself a break. And so I always advise to all of my clients who are doing all of the right things is let's just focus on that. Let's focus on creating a mindful routine. Buy the book called The Gut Feelings, or Gut Feelings by Dr. Will Cole. I'll write it in the description box down here, and I'll write like the slippery elm and stuff like that as well that I was talking about. But go and sit still for 5 minutes, think, breathe. Get yourself lowered into your parasympathetic nervous system, and you do that by simply slowing that breath down. Commit to a mindful practice, so half an hour a day where you might do a guided meditation, you may do a great gratitude list, have a weekly bath and put your phone in another room, go for a walk without your phone. Start to remember the importance of not always being on the go. And I spoke about this in the stress in the gut video, that training our bodies to get into the parasympathetic nervous system requires exactly that training. It's exactly like training for a marathon, or training for some sort of exercise. You've got to practice. The first meditation you will do, you will hate. Like, I hated it. I was sat still and all I wanted to do was get up and do something practical, because what a waste of time me sat here. What a waste of time. And what people do is that they go, I've tried it. It's not for me. Not for me. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for you yet. Honestly, commit to it. Same as toilet training, commit to it. Your bowels will not fix themselves overnight. They need time and they need consistency. So really focusing on actually switching off. So like lots of people, they go to a yoga class and yeah, but I go to yoga. I'm like, but are you thinking about what you're going to do when you finish yoga? Because that was me. I was always thinking about what am I going to do when I finish this, until I got into it. And I started breathing with the movement, and I started doing the real meditative stuff at the very end. That's when I would walk out of those lessons being like, I feel amazing. The first ever really slow yoga that I did, I hadn't gone into my whole gut healing journey yet. It was still before lockdown. I went to a Friday night chill class, and again, wasn't really my thing. I just went because it was on the timetable of where I was and I was intrigued. And it was this dark room, and we did around, I would say in an hour, maybe 4 poses. Like, that's nothing. And as in, like, normally if you do yoga flow is up and down, but literally you had a bolster, so right now lay in this position, and the teacher would then read a poem or like do some charms. And I started crying, no reason, just halfway through, because I think my body had finally just relaxed. And I left that class, and I cannot explain, I was literally walking on clouds, and I had never ever felt that calm and contentment. I'd obviously released a bit of something from the crying that came out of nowhere, and that was my first inkling of, that there's something in this slowing down, this mindfulness stuff. So sorry, I'm really digressing on, but please focus on slowing down. Be selfish, say no to things, create a mindful routine, read. I'm going to put some books I really recommend that are just great for really kind of rebuilding that confidence, rebuilding that self-esteem, to have the confidence to slow down, to do things that are more better for you. So that's one thing I'd really recommend, as well as then diverse range of fibre. So don't just stick to one bit of fibre. Colour, rainbow, diversity, lots of water, and toilet training. And the biggest thing with toilet training is to not overthink the fact that you're not going. Sit on that toilet every single day, 5 minutes. If you haven't been, get up, crack on with your day. Get a squatty potty. Do not strain. Just try to take away the pressure of feeling like you have to go. And if we can get you away from the stimulant laxatives, so your Dulcolax, and use magnesium citrate instead, or you may want to use a home enema to try and basically want to get this build-up out of you. So home enemas or clonics or magnesium citrate we use to get the bowels going. To keep them going, we look at our fibre, our fermented foods, our stress management, all the stuff that I've just been talking about. Sorry, I feel like I've really gone on to a bit of a long chat with that one there, but it's such a close one to my heart. I was there, I'd eat every single bit of fibre, tried every single supplement, and nothing ever worked until I tapped into the fact that my brain and my gut were not communicating, and I needed to show my body some respect and not always be in your sympathetic nervous system, which is your stressed state. So I have no idea what the time is because I have no watch on, but I'm guessing it's quite a long video. But I really hope that has helped some of you, and that there are a couple of like, I didn't know that, or great, okay, I'm going to try that, or yes, I'm definitely going to go and speak to my GP again. And hopefully you can just slowly, there's no pill, there's no overnight fix, slowly and steadily get your bowels moving better, and just feeling good, because that is ultimately what we want. I'm going to love you and leave you. Any questions, please pop them in the comment box. I will get back to them. And hopefully what I might do is do another series on something and do more questions like this, because I think this works really well. Anyway, I'm going to get off the floor, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Have a lovely day.